Okay, but good evening. We're going to talk tonight about the Chanuka the impending holiday coming up next week. When does it start? Monday night. Right? Chanuka starts Monday night. So there's a few things that we didn't cover last week. There's still so many things to cover about Chanuka. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is the story of Chanuka, which is very fascinating. It's not really very well documented in like one single book, like other holidays where you have like so much material, like in one place. When it comes to Chanuka, it's like scattered all over. So you gotta look around and see, a lot of details coming here, coming there from different sources. It's not so well documented. One of the rabbis over here, by the way, Rabbi Weiss, who prays with us, he asked a good question about Chanuka. You know what he asked? His question was, when it comes to other holidays, like Purim or Pesach, things like this. So it's there's a storyline there which is brought down in the Bible. Tells you what happened over there and how it transpired. When it comes to Chanuka, there is no storyline in the Bible from any biblical books that are written about this. So the question is, why not? Why? That was his question. It wasn't my question. But the truth is, it's a very good question. So you know what I answered him? It's very simple. The answer is that when during the time of Chanuka, there was no prophecy. When that holiday occurred, the prophecy had already ceased a while ago. What does that mean? It means that the prophets basically, they started out in the times of the Bet HaMikdash. There was always prophecy. The first Bet HaMikdash, every generation had prophets, and the Chazal tell us in the Gemara that there was many prophets, like thousands of them. There was a big schools also, yeshivot of prophets, where they used to train you how to do prophecy. That's the way it was. So this was something which was very well known, very well publicized. The first temple. When it comes to the second temple, though, prophecy started to wane. It started to disappear little by little. What does that mean? In the beginning of the second temple, there was only 3 prophets left at that time. That's it. Once those 3 prophets died, prophecy pretty much ceased in Israel. Everywhere it ceased, not only in Israel. There was no prophecy anywhere. Who were the last 3 prophets that lived? Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Right? These were the last 3 prophets. We have their books. In the 12 prophets, we have them. And everything is documented. But what happened is that the story of Chanuka doesn't occur at that time. When it comes to the story of Purim, this happened before the Bet HaMikdash was built, the second Bet HaMikdash. So there was prophecy. When it comes to Chanuka, there was no prophecy. That already ceased. Because Chanuka happened, when was the year that Chanuka really occurred? It was 200 years after the Bet HaMikdash was built, the second Bet HaMikdash. It was in the middle of the existence of the second Bet HaMikdash. It was actually, if you count literally the years, it comes out 206 years before the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash. This was when the story of Chanuka occurred. 206 years before. Altogether, the second Bet HaMikdash stood for 420 years. So it was right in the middle of the second Bet HaMikdash. That's what it was. So what happens is that because of that, there's no prophets. So therefore, who's going to write the story in the Bible? No, there's no Bible anymore. That's it. It's done. The Bible is already done. So no more prophecy, no more Bible, no more nothing. So therefore, the story of Chanuka was not documented in a Megillah. What is a Megillah? Like a book, some kind of scroll. There's no Chanuka scroll.
Yeah.
No such a thing like that. No prophecy. But we do have some sources that document what happened over there. One of them, by the way, is the book of Yosifon. Who is this Yosifon? What is that book? In English, they call him Josephus. Nice name, right? Whatever. So he wrote a book. When he was alive, Josephus? Yosifon was alive at the end of the second Bet HaMikdash, when Titus came and destroyed it. He was alive at that time. He knew Titus. He knew the Roman structure. He was a very well-educated man, a very aristocratic man, Josephus. So what happened was he documented a lot of things in his books about what was going on in the Second Temple, a lot of history he documented, and he's considered to be reliable. You know why? Because he was a tzaddik, he was a righteous man, he was a wise man, so he's considered to be reliable. So the rabbis learned a lot of things from his books about all the history of the Second Temple. So we find that the story of Chanuka is very interesting. You know why? Who was the one we mentioned last week? Who was the one who founded the Greek Empire? It was the whole thing was a Greek Empire over there. They were the one who was dominant power. The Greek Empire was founded by Alexander the Great. This is a very important figure. right, in world history. Why is Alexander so important? Because he ruled over the whole world. He was a very big king. He was a very mighty king, He had dominance over the whole world. They say, right, that when it's come to his prowess of war, he used to defeat everybody. Like nobody could stand in front of him, Everywhere he turned, he won. He was an amazing warrior, amazing leader, amazing king. Not only that, they say also Alexander was a righteous man. He was a tzaddik. Yeah? What does that mean? He was a God-fearing man. He was not an idolater. He was a God-fearing human being, Alexander. One of the interesting things they say about him is that when he used to come to Eretz Israel to visit, in Eretz Israel, he would come and visit somebody called Shimon HaTzadik. Who was Shimon HaTzadik? Shimon HaTzadik was the high priest at that time, the Kohen Gadol. So Shimon HaTzadik was a very holy man, very impressive person. One of the great figures, rabbinic figures of Jewish Judaism. So what happened was that he used to come, the strange thing was, what was such a great king like this, Alexander the Great, who conquered the whole world. When he used to come with Shimon HaTzadik to see him, he would bow down in front of him like this, Alexander the Great. Like this, bow down, So one time they asked him, they said, like, Alexander, why do you bow in front of this friend Rabbi? What's with you? Like, what do you see in him? Do you bow down to him? It's very strange. So you know what he said, Alexander? He said, the reason I bow to him is because I see in my dreams an angel that comes to me and speaks to me, and he looks just like him. So the face is the same face. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, used to give him dreams that he used to see Shimon HaTzadik in those dreams. Can you imagine such a strange thing like this? So Shimon HaTzadik was like an angel. He was like a malach. So Alexander himself was a God-fearing man. That's why they say, by the way, interesting point, they say that, you shouldn't name your children, like the name of a goy. Name of a Jewish name, like Daniel, Yosef. Give them names like this, these are Jewish names. Don't give him a goyish name. But they say that if you call yourself Alexander, if you call him Alexander, you don't have to change that name because he was a righteous man.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
So he believed in God.
Yeah, he was a straight shooter.
What compelled him to...
That's the way he was, Some people are straight, he was a straight man.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, they say Alexander is not a bad name to call your son. If you want to call him that name. It may not be the best name either, but it's nothing wrong with it, in other words, because this man was a tzaddik. So what happened was, as we mentioned last week, that Alexander, as he was dying, he had 4 sons, basically, This is documented in the book of Daniel, one of the books of the Bible. So he documents over there that Alexander, he died, he had 4 sons. So these 4 sons were like competing against each other. There was like rivalry between them, Who's going to get what, the inheritance, because this guy had the whole world in his hand. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of inheritance. So therefore, what Alexander decided to do was to give the kingdom, to divide up into 4 pieces, his kingdom, and he gave one son each one piece of the kingdom. Each son got one piece. Interesting, right? So what happened was that the world got divided into 4 pieces because of that. This was the Greek Empire. This is how it was founded. When was the Greek Empire? The Greek Empire was after the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire ruled over the whole world for a certain amount of time. Once they finished their rule, then the Greeks came, right? Alexander came and defeated the Persians. He took over. So now he divides it up into 4 pieces, gives one piece to each of his sons. So what happened was that as time went along, history went along, the Greek Empire lasted for quite a long time. So what happened was that the dominant powers of those 4 kingdoms became the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The east and west were not so dominant. They were not so powerful. You know what I mean? So what happened was that they developed a rivalry between the north and south. There was wars between them also. Civil war going on back and forth. Bach, 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 bach. So at the end of the Greek Empire, what happened was that the northern kingdom eventually became what kingdom? Became Rome. Rome came out of that northern kingdom. He grew out of that. That's what happened. That's how the Romans arose. The Romans took over that northern kingdom, and the southern kingdom was the original Greece. The authentic Greek kingdom. So became the rivalry after quite a long time. So what happened was that the northern and southern kingdom were fighting between each other like this, back and forth, and eventually the Romans won out. They defeated the Greeks. You know what I mean? So they took over the whole world. They became the next superpower after the Greeks. So what happened was that the last king of the Greek Empire, as we said, the first king was Alexander. He was a good man, right? The last king, his name was Antiochus. Right? Antiochus was a big troublemaker, this guy, big headache, this guy. The worst of the worst, the lowest of the low life. So what made him really, really so bad? He started to afflict the Jews, very badly. He was an anti-Semite, like rabid. Like those guys, Corbin, and this and people like this, right? Very, very anti-Semitic. He wasn't like Hitler. It wasn't that bad. Because he wasn't really... His intention was not to kill the Jews, like to exterminate them. That wasn't his intention. His intention was to Hellenize them. Turn them into like, sports figures, like sports guys, baseball, football, Olympics, running, javelin, this kind of thing, right? Everything was sports by them. So he wanted to make the Jews into like sporty people, more or less, right? That's the idea. Another, by the way, sports was brought in by the Greeks as well, you know that. So there's also another thing which was brought by the Greeks, the Greek culture. The other thing was the university culture, like going to university, studying philosophy, all kinds of disciplines. This is also grew out from the Greek culture as well. That's where we get it from. The university whole thing, that's why even today when you like go to the universities, you see like Greek letters over there, Phi Beta Kappa, Where does this come from? These are all Greek things.
Sure.
Why? Because the university movement was also made by the Greeks. Until this day, it still continues with that tradition. So what does that mean? The tradition, the Greeks also had like a intellectual arm of their culture as well, element, intellectual. That was the universities. So what happened was that Antiochus was a very bad guy. So what did he try to do to the Jews? He tried to destroy their culture, destroy their religion, to obliterate them, So what did he do? The first thing he said, Antiochus, when he took over, was that the Sanhedrin, the high court of the Jews, has to be closed down. Close it down. What's the reason why he made this decree, Antiochus? Mm-hmm. This was a very deep intention over there. This was not just something, like shallow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His intentions were very deep. He knew what he was doing. He was like evil genius guy. So what was his intention? His intention was basically that once you close down the Bet Din, the high court, that means the Jewish religion cannot function anymore. It destroys the religion as well. How does that work? Because the Bet Din, what happens is that they have one of their functions of the Bet Din is to make the Rosh Chodesh. Mm-hmm. To tell you which day is Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, the new month, right? The beginning of the month. They fix that day according to deliberations that they have over there in the Bet Din. So once you don't have that, a Bet Din making in the new moon, what happens is also you have no holidays. You know why? Because you don't know which day the holiday is. Because the holiday goes according to the beginning of the month. You have to know which number is the beginning in order to get to the number of the month that you need to do the holiday. So therefore, by obliterating the Bet Din, he also obliterated the holidays. This was really his deeper intention. He wanted to obliterate the holidays. He didn't want the Jews to celebrate their holidays. What does that mean? First of all, no Rosh Chodesh, right? Rosh Chodesh is a holiday. What does that mean? The beginning of the month is a holiday, according to the Torah. So he told the Jews, you're not allowed to keep Rosh Chodesh. Whoever keeps Rosh Chodesh, liable to death. That's penalty. Can you imagine? Number 2, he told them, don't keep Shabbat. Right? Off limits. No Shabbat. Then he told them no holidays, right? Also, because there is no holidays. Once you don't have Bet Din, you don't have the holidays either. So he wanted to tell them, then he told them, no studying Torah. Whoever studies Torah is liable to death. Can you imagine? Because he knew that the engine of the Jewish people is the Torah, That's what drives us. That's what keeps us going, right? So he said, no Torah study. Whoever studies is liable to death. Also, he made another one, another decree, right? Which is what? That they had to serve idols, to do idolatry, like the Greeks used to have. The Greeks used to have many gods. The god of this, the god of this, they have names for these stupid gods, Athena, Bacina, Bagina, all these kinds of names, right? These names. Mythology. If you ever went to like a class in mythology, those names are names of idols. That's what they are. It's idolatry, you know what I mean? The god of this, Venus, it's like the name of a goddess. One of the planets that we have, right? It's a Greek name for a goddess. It's all these are idols. So they told the Jewish people, you have to serve idolatry. And also they said, no Brit Milah. Whoever does circumcision, liable to death. Whoever keeps Shabbat, liable to death. All these things. This was Antiochus, Rasha. So what happened was that because of this, the Jews were very pressured. They couldn't keep their religion. They were being persecuted, very heavily by Antiochus and his army. He had an army of people. Where was the kingdom of Antiochus? Interesting, right? It wasn't in Athens or in Sparta, right? One of those great cities of Greece. No, it was in Syria. His kingdom was in Syria, his capital city, right? Until this day, by the way, that city exists. What's the name of that city? Antiochia. You know where it is? It's in Syria today, right next to the region of Halab. Halab is a region in Syria. Everything is destroyed over there, up in smoke, right? You know how it is, right, today. But nevertheless, that Antiochia is where Antiochus lived, and they named the city after him. That's why Antiochia, because his name was Antiochus. You understand? And it's still the name that exists today. So what happened was that Antiochus, because he was in the Middle East, he persecuted Israel very greatly. So they say, right, there's some atrocities also that were committed at that time. What does that mean? They say, right, you know how Jews are, right? Jews, when they make decrees on them, they always want to get out of it. You know what I mean? Try to escape. They won't listen to you. They want to always get around everything, right? So what happened was that there was a group of Jews who wanted to keep Shabbat. They didn't want to break Shabbat. You know what I mean? So what they did was they decided, look, if we keep Shabbat in public, they'll kill us. So what should we do? So they went into a certain tower, some kind of building, 1,000 people, and they were keeping Shabbat in there, closed up. Nobody should watch them. So what happened was that there was some, Jew who squealed on them. He sold them out. Somebody like Schiff, one of those guys, right? What's the other one? Nadler, right? Nadler, what's his name, right? Those guys, right? One of those fake Jews, right, over there. So what happened was that he sold them out. He squealed, and he went to Antiochus' people. He told them, all those Jews are over there in the tower, keeping Shabbat. Go get them. Come get ready, Informer. So what happened was that the army of Antiochus he sent people over to check them. So he gets to the tower, right? What happens is that they come to the tower, start knocking over there. Hey, get out, who's over here? So those people didn't answer them, they stayed quiet. So they started to scream at them, loudspeakers, okay, if you don't come down now, right, if you don't come out, we're going to burn you alive over here in this tower. We're going to burn you down to the ground. So what happened was that they didn't answer them. So they went and brought wood, from the forest. They burned the wood. They burned down the whole tower. They killed 1,000 people. This is what happened. So these people were killed for keeping Shabbat. Can you imagine? They died, 1,000 people for keeping Shabbat. This was one of the atrocities that was committed by Antiochus. There's also another very, very scary story. What's a scary story? The scary story is that there was one lady. His name was Hannah. Her name was Hannah. This Hannah, she had 7 sons. So what happened was that Antiochus brings those 7 sons to meet him. So he tells them, he says, what? I want you guys to serve idols in front of me, because I commanded you have to serve idols. So what happens is that these children don't want to serve idols; they're tzaddikim. So one of them tells Antiochus, the oldest son, he says, I won't serve your idol. Antiochus, he tells him, it says, don't have any other gods before me in 10 commandments. I'm not going to serve your idol. So what does Antiochus do? He kills the first son, right? And goes like this, all the other sons. Number 6, number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1. The first one, right? What does that mean? The youngest one. He gets to the youngest one, so he tells this little kid. So he tells him, he says, what? He says, I know your brothers didn't serve the idol. But he says, what? I don't want you to die. I feel sorry for you. So he tells him like this, you know what? What I'll do is like this. I'll drop my ring on the floor, and it has an idol on it, some kind of cross, whatever, something like that, whatever. So he tells him, just go pick it up and it'll look like you bowed down to it, This way you don't have to really do it. Can you imagine? He tells his kid like this, go and pick, I don't want to kill you, too bad, like, I feel sorry for you. You're a little kid. So the kid tells him, no, there's no way, I won't bend down to pick up your stupid ring. So Antiochus killed him too, Can you imagine? So what happened was he killed all the 7 sons of this lady because they wouldn't serve idols. And what happened was that after the 7 sons died, that lady Hannah, she went up to the roof and she jumped off and she committed suicide. She killed herself. So the whole family perished like that. So the voice came out from heaven and they said, this family has a portion in the world to come. Because they give up their lives not to serve idols, right? That's the rule. The rule is that if a person is asked to serve idols in public, he has to refuse that, right? And give up his life. So that's what they did. Okay, very good. So, not very bad, not so good, right? Very bad. Okay, so then there's also another story. They say that there was one man who had a son, and when his son was born, he died. So what happened was that his mother took him to do Brit Milah in secret. They couldn't do Brit Milah in the open. I think it was the same thing with the communists, They weren't allowing
absolutely.
that. So you had to do it in secret.
Yes.
That's how we did it.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
In Georgia, it was more lenient.
Yeah, it was more lenient. Yeah, you're right. So what happened was that one of these women decides to do Brit Milah on her son. The father is dead. So she does it in secret, They found out about her. Somebody squealed also. There was informants over there, So what happened is that they came to her, They said, "What? Let's, let me see, Let's see your son. You did Brit Milah on him?" She said, "No." "Okay, let's see. You cut it." They checked it out. They saw it was cut. You know what I mean? So what they do? They tied this child to the breasts of the lady. They put them up on the roof. They burned them. And they threw them off the roof like that. That's what they did. Can you imagine to kill them like that? This was the atrocities committed by the Greeks. They were very, very cruel. Especially Antiochus. Who was the worst of the worst. Nobody like him. So another atrocity, which we mentioned last week, is just to fill you in on it, right? To fill you in. What was the story? The story was that also there was a rule by them, such corrupted people. The rule was that every Jewish woman who would get married, young girl, she had to first be the first night with the governor, the Greek governor, and then, once he, messes her up, kapuchos, like your friend, to kapucha, then you can go with her husband. You understand? The second night afterwards. The first night has to be with the governor. Can you imagine such a thing like this? So what happened was this was going on like that. That's the way it was going. They accepted it.
Looks like the Romans learned from them.
That's an interesting point what you're saying. Because they superseded them.
Yes.
They came after them. So they adopted a lot of things from them. A lot of culture came from, the Roman culture came from the Greek culture. Even though there was war between them, but they adopted the good things from the Greeks.
Yeah.
The beneficial things, whatever. According to them, it's beneficial, whatever. But the point is like this, right? That what happened was that one time there was the daughter of the high priest, whose name was Yochanan Kohen Gadol. He was the high priest. So he had a daughter. Her name was Yehudit. Judith, right? That's the way it's in English. Her name was Judith, right? So Yehudit, this lady, they were tzaddikim people, very righteous people, very holy people. So what happened was that as she got married to somebody, got engaged, you know what I mean? So they're taking her to the wedding, the wedding night, and all of a sudden they divert her into the, towards the governor, Can you imagine? So she's asking them, "Where are you taking me? What is this? These were Jews." And so we're taking you to the governor. You gotta go to him first. The first night. The first night is with him. You know what I mean? So she started to yell at them. "What are you doing? You're Jews. Shame on you. What kind of thing is this? You're taking me to the governor to be with him. This low life. This, garbage.
Yeah.
To be with him like this." So she started yelling at them. She said, "What kind of Jews are you? You're traitors. You betrayed your people." So what happened was, in the end, she pulled like a big stunt, over there. What did she do? Once she got to the house of the governor, she pulled a trick on him. What did she do? She was one of those smart ladies, So she tells the governor, and says, "Okay, you want to get on with me, whatever." So she tells him, "Okay, but you know what? Let's have a drink." So she goes and makes him like warm milk, to drink. Milkshake. Right? So she made him a nice milkshake. And what happens is that milk makes you drowsy. That's what happens. You know what I mean? Especially warm milk, which comes from the cow, like not pasteurized. You know what I mean? It makes you very drowsy. So what happens is that she gives it to him to drink. He went and got drowsy. Dozed off. Chides in him. Yeah. What did she do? She took a sword, and cut off his head, Muchatal. She gave him Brit Milah on his head. Can you imagine? So what did she do? She removes his head, chops it off, brings it out, to the balcony, and shows everybody, says, here, this is what happens to the people who oppress the Jews. That's what she did. She was a very courageous lady. So once that occurred, this incident, what happened was that the rebellion started at that time. The Jews started to rebel against the Greeks. They said it's enough is enough. These atrocities have to stop. It's just too much. It's too cruel. So what happened was that the problem was that they didn't really have an organized army at that time to fight the Greeks. You know why? Because most of the people were already Hellenized. The culture of the Greeks was so pervasive at that time that they didn't even want to fight against them. They thought they were their friends. You know what I mean? They didn't realize that there was anything bad. It's like you today, you go watch, CNN, Fox, you watch the internet over there, all kinds of crazy things. You think this is good, this is not good. You're being seduced into their culture. But nevertheless, what happens is that a person, when he doesn't know that this is bad, he has nothing to fight for. So there was nobody to fight with the Greeks. They couldn't get an army. So what did they do? It says in the book Danielov, what they did was, just the family of the Hashmonaim, right, with the Kohen Gadol and his sons, Yochanan Kohen Gadol, the Kohanim, what they did was they organized themselves. They had 12 people. The family, 12 people altogether. The father and 11 sons, 12 sons. What happened was that they organized, they made a meeting, they said, we gotta fight. That's it, we gotta fight. We have to do it. 12 people? That's an army? It's a joke. Come on, give me a break, right? So one of the sons calls out, it says in Mamloez, calls out to the others. He says, you know what? Maybe we should wait for the Persians, because the Persians had a pact with them, with Israel. They would come defend them if something happens, Like they have America, You think they really come? When something happens, they won't come. They never keep their word. Believe me when I tell you. They sign all kinds of agreements. In the end, you'll be lucky if they send you some missiles. They'll send you some missiles. But when it comes to coming to defend you, they won't do it. You know how it is, right? Never fails. They never come. They sign all kinds of pacts, treaties. We have treaties. This country, not worth the paper it's written on. Those treaties. Right? So, why did I tell you this? So he tells them, let's wait for the Persians. We have a pact with them. So the other brothers answered him. They said, what Persians? He says, what, are you crazy? He says, you think the Persian is going to come and help us? You know what they quoted? They quoted a verse from the book of Jeremiah. It says over there in Jeremiah, what does that mean? Cursed is the one who relies on mankind. We talked about this before a couple of years ago, right? A year ago, whatever. You're not supposed to rely on mankind. You're supposed to rely on God. They said, you want to rely on the Persians? This is mankind. Cursed is the one who does that. So they said, okay, I guess you're right. So they agreed. So what did they do? They went out against the armies of the Greeks, 12 people, can you imagine? And they defeated the Greeks. That's what happened. This was a very great miracle, you understand? Besides the miracle of the oil, there was also the miracle of the military defeat here. 12 people going against the whole Greek army. How many people were in the army? It says in the Mamloez, there was 1 million people in that army coming to subjugate the Jews. Can you imagine? 1 million people against 12. That's what it was. So Kadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle for them. They defeated 1 million people, and they repelled the Greeks. Threw them out. They got rid of them. So what happened was that Antiochus, at that time, he was very disappointed. Obviously, he couldn't defeat the Jews. He got really messed up big time, right? So what does he do? Antiochus, he makes a plan now to come to Jerusalem and conquer Jerusalem. To destroy the city. He says, that's it. It's over. I'm coming over there myself. I'm going to destroy the city. So what happened? Once he made the plan to destroy Jerusalem, to come over there and to conquer Jerusalem, what happened was that Kadosh Baruch Hu struck him with a disease. What disease was that? It was leprosy. So you know what leprosy is, right? Leprosy is like your body that comes apart. Ishleba, Tatani. Like you just like one arm falls off over here, lo aleinu. One leg over there. Your ear comes off over here, lo aleinu. That's what happened to him. He got leprosy. His body started to dismember. So they say the funny thing is like this, right? That Antiochus, when he got this leprosy, one of the properties of leprosy, you know what it is? that when a person gets it, he starts to stink. His body starts to smell bad. He starts like stench, like it's terrible. You can't stand the stench. That's why they put the lepers on leper colony. Used to put them on leper colony, some island, because you couldn't put those people with the regular. First of all, they're very contagious. Number one, you understand? They're very contagious. It's fast, very very fast. But number two also because of the fact that they smell. They stink. You can't be with them. So what happened was that he started to smell. Really bad. As he started to come to Jerusalem to conquer it, his body was all stinking, like stunk, like big time. So they couldn't like stand him, like they were like this, like this. They couldn't. So what happened was that the horse that he was riding on, he also couldn't stand the smell. So what he did was the horse, he threw off Antiochus, from the back of the horse. He threw him off like this, and then he tread on him, like with his legs, Dabrida, so he totally destroyed, he mutilated him. So what happened was that once Antiochus got mutilated like that, he tried to go up to the back of the horse. They tried to bring him back up, but the smell was so bad, so they couldn't even carry his body to bury it. So you know what they did? They threw the body off, like just like they left it there, Dagdas, a piece of garbage, They threw him off, and that was it. Antiochus was finished. You understand? That's the idea. This is the way he died. He died in shame and very disgraced like this. Very terrible death he died because he afflicted the Jews. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should afflict all of them like that. He should repay all these enemies like that. That's what it'll be, but it'll be even worse than that. But the point is that Antiochus died a very tragic death like this. But he deserved it. Baruch Hashem. All the enemies of the Jews should be like that. So this is exactly what happened. Once that happened, that the Greeks were totally defeated by the Jews. So then what happened was that they made a kingdom. The Hashmonaim, these Kohanim, these priests. They were the ones who made the kingdom. You know why? Because they're the ones who defeated the Greeks. They're the ones who fought the battle. Well, everybody else didn't want to fight with the Greeks. They thought they were their friends, They gave me cable TV, they gave me internet. Why should I fight with them? They're my internet supplier. You know what I mean? What's the point, And when I go to the gym, they're the ones who give me the gym to exercise. What should I fight with them about? I keep in shape. My body's in good shape. What's the problem? They didn't see the problem with the Greeks. That wasn't the problem, you understand? They thought it was something good. They were like totally Hellenized at that time. You understand? That was a big problem. So therefore, these Hashmonaim came and defeated the Greeks like that. That's what happened, right? Also, the other major miracle, besides the fact that there was a military victory like that, which was totally miraculous, was the candles, right? Was the oil. Yeah. What does that mean? That the Greeks, by the way, they did also another atrocity, which was really like, very, very bad. You know what they did? Antiochus told his army to go to the Bet HaMikdash, and instead of offering over there, like sacrifice the Jews used to offer, he told them to bring pigs over there, choreb, swines. And they offered swines over there to their idols. Can you imagine? They brought pigs into the Bet HaMikdash. Such a disgrace, what a disgraceful thing like this. Unclean animals they bought. And they offered them over there. So what happened was that they defiled the whole Bet HaMikdash like that, like destroyed, mutilated everything. They didn't destroy the building. But they brought idols over there, idolatry, all kinds of things. Pigs, choreb, it was like a disaster. This is what happened. So what happened was that they took all the oil that they had over there. They had olive oil because they used to burn the menorah every day over there in the Bet HaMikdash. There's a mitzvah every day to light the menorah. That menorah has to be lit towards the evening. It has to be lit all night until the morning. Right. So you got to put enough oil in there to last until the morning. So what happened was they took all the jars of oil and they defiled them, opened them up, touch their hands, put their stuff. It becomes defiled like that. You can't touch it, it has to be clean. So what happened was they defiled everything. What happened was that when the Jews came in after the Greeks were defeated, the whole Bet HaMikdash was like, in disarray. That's what it is, right? So what happened was that they found one jar of oil that the Greeks didn't find in a different place, different location. One drawer, over there. They went up. All the other ones were already defiled. They couldn't light with that. So what happened was they wanted to light the Bet HaMikdash. So they found one jar that was sealed, never untouched. So what they did was they opened it up, and they used that to light the menorah that day. You understand? And there was enough oil over there, according to the measure, as we said, it has to burn all night until the morning to last one day. You understand? So it lasted for 8 days. There was a miracle. You understand? Allah Baruch Hu made the miracle. This was the second miracle, besides the military victory. You know what I mean? So what happened was that oil lasted for 8 days, even though it was really only for one day over there, enough. In terms of the measure.
Okay.
This is why we do Hanukkah for 8 days.
Okay.
You understand? So, one of the interesting things about this, about this oil business, is first of all, they ask a question, the Bet Yosef asks this question. It's asked by a lot of commentators, this question. You're telling me, right, they had enough oil for one night, basically, so it lasted for 8 days. Okay, then I understand. But then the Hanukkah should be only for 7 days. You know why? Because the first night was not a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
The first night was according to nature. Mm-hmm. There was no miracle the first night.
Mm-hmm.
The miracle started after the first night. So then do 7 days. Why do 8 days? What's the reason? So it says the Bet Yosef, one of the answers that we find over there, is that it says that the truth is that the first day was also a miracle. You know why? Mm-hmm. Because what happened was that they took that jar, they opened up that sealed jar, and they poured it out into the candle, just to light it. Yeah. So what happened was that when they poured out the candle, the oil stayed the same volume in the jar. It didn't get decreased, That was also a miracle because of that. You understand? That was the whole thing. So the whole thing was a miracle from beginning to end. That's why we do 8 days. Mm-hmm. Another interesting thing is that they say there was also another miracle that occurred over there with the menorah. The miracle was that not only did it lit for 8 days, but it lit up the whole city of Jerusalem. Can you imagine? One menorah had enough power to light the whole city was lit. So they saw all this. This was like amazing. Like Daibid, They went nuts. Yeah. They said, "Wow, this is like this is not normal. This is not according to nature." So this is also another reason why they made the miracle of the oil. So this is why the Chazal say, by the way, that since the miracle was done with oil, so this is why it's better to use oil for the menorah, for the Chanukkah, not to use wax candles, paraffin. That's like second class, passé, more like But since the miracle was done with oil, so a person should opt to use oil. What does that mean? The best thing is to use olive oil, because that's what they used over there. Mm-hmm. They use olive oil over there in the Beit HaMikdash. Why olive oil? Because it burns the brightest. It has the brightest flame out of all the oils. You understand? So they say also that if a person uses olive oil, he also gets like a lot of benefits from that in his life. His sons turn out to be good Talmidei Chachamim, Bnei Torah, right? Scholars, whatever, Torah scholars. It has a good effect on the family as well, using olive oil. Not only for the menorah, for Hanukkah, but also for Shabbat as well. To light the Shabbat candles also with olive oil. But even for the Rabbi told us, Rabbi, he told us that even if a person doesn't have olive oil, better to use another oil than to use wax, because the miracle was done with oil. So to commemorate the miracle of Hanukkah, the person should use oil. That's the idea. It's better to use it. But if he has no oil at all, he could use wax candles, because everything is kosher. Whatever. Also, there's a special mitzvah also to use the wick should be like made out of cotton. If you can find a cotton wick, this is the best wick to use. There's also you can use other wicks, but the best oil is the olive oil, and the best wick is the cotton wick. If a person can get those are number one. Right? That's the idea. So a person should try it, to do the mitzvah the best way, to do it this way, in this manner. So that's number one. Also, another interesting thing regarding the olive oil is what the truth is. If you look in the market today, there's different grades of olive oil in the market. If you go to the supermarket, you'll find also to the stores, you'll find that there's like one which is called like in Hebrew they call it like shemen zait katit. You know what that means? It's a first press. Mm-hmm. The way they make olive oil is they press them and they squeeze out the oil from there. So you can do the first squeezing and then the subsequent after that, two or three. Mm-hmm. The first one comes out really, really clean, like very pure, and that burns the best. That's like the best quality. So because of that, this is the best oil to use. When it comes out, like the first press is the best. That's what they use in the Beit HaMikdash, by the way.
Ultimately,
it
should go out. It shouldn't burn.
It'll go out, yeah.
It'll go out.
Of course.
Yeah.
Once it ends, it ends.
Yes.
That's it, right?
Yes.
You know what they call that in English? Just remember that. They call it extra virgin.
Okay.
Extra virgin olive oil. What does that mean? That's the first press.
First press, yeah.
This is the idea, This is what they use in the Beit HaMikdash, because it was the best quality olive oil there is. Also, in terms of the taste of it, the best taste also. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Once you go to the second press or a third, it becomes more acidic, like sour. Mm-hmm. There's like a sour thing that tastes to it. So that's why the best is to use the first press. But there's also second press. Second press is not really good for like making, like let's say, a salad, to use olive oil in salad, because it's a little bit bitter, acidic. But it's good to use for like frying. If you want to fry something, you can use it for that. It's fit for frying, but not so fit for using like as a salad.
I see.
You know, it's not that grade.
Yeah.
There's also another grade, which is the third grade after that, which it's not even fit for frying. It's only fit for lighting, like a lamp. You know, basically like lighting a menorah. You can light with it; it'll light good. It's very bright, but in terms of edible, it's not edible. Why is that? Because it's too acidic. This is the reason why. So the question is, right, regarding these three grades, can a person use like the worst grade? Because the truth is, you know, olive oil is very expensive. You know what I mean? Like for a bottle of olive oil, you can pay like $20.
I know.
It's the most expensive oil. It's good, very good quality, you know? Especially for the extra virgin, as we said. That's the idea. There's also the other grades, as we said. But nevertheless, the question is, do you have to use the best one, or can you use also the second grade and third grade? So the truth is that, my rabbi, he spoke about this. He said you're allowed to use even the third grade. Why is that? Even though it's not edible, but here the mitzvah is not to eat the oil. You know what I mean? It's just to burn the oil, right? So therefore, even though in the Bet HaMikdash they used to use the first press, but Bet HaMikdash had a special, stringency that we don't use at home. We don't do those stringencies at home. So therefore, if a person wants to save a little money, he doesn't have such a big budget. Let's say, right? He doesn't want to pay $20 for a bottle. He wants to pay $5, $10, whatever it is, and so he can use those. If he can't afford that, if he can afford it, it's nice to buy the best one. Why not? But not obligation, right? Since we're not really using it to eat anyway, so what do I care if it's edible or not? What does that really affect me? I just need it to burn bright, and it doesn't burn very bright because it still is olive oil after all. You know what I mean? It's a third press, second press, third press, whatever it is. It's not the same quality, but nevertheless, it's fit for to light as a lamp. So therefore, you're allowed to use this kind of olive oil, right?
So this holiday is not really to commemorate some kind of freedom from.
Yeah, because they were subjugating us. There was death penalty. As we said, right? If you don't do these things, as we said, all these things we mentioned, you were going to be, the mincemeat.
So
they're
we
going to kill you. Yeah,
Yeah,
there was an oppression going on. Very heavy oppression. The truth is that we saw this also in our generation with the communists. This kind of oppression. We had the same thing. That's something just from history. we lived through that. The communist oppression was very bad. So, same thing over here, you understand? But the Greeks, as we said, committed all these atrocities. Nevertheless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu returned it to them on their head, Whatever they did to us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu paid them back.
Yeah.
Right? Big time, overkill. That's what happened. So Hashem should give us, B'ezras Hashem, light. They say, by the way, that the light of the Chanuka light, it's very special. You know why? To look at it, because it has the light of Mashiach over there. There's something very special about looking at the light. Especially the first half hour. You know why? Because the first half hour is the mitzvah. After that, the mitzvah is over. You should put it out after half hour. There's no reason to keep it on anymore. Especially if it's a fire hazard, you're leaving the house. Don't leave it lit. It's a fire hazard. You can burn down. So therefore, the best way is to just to light it for half hour, put it out, and that's it. You're done with that.
Right.
There's also another issue which I want to tell you before we leave, which is that a person who once he uses the oil for lighting the candles, he's not allowed to use that for mundane purposes anymore. What does that mean? For cooking or to make a salad?
Okay.
Because it has holiness, it has sanctity now. The fact that you use it for the mitzvah, you're not allowed to use it anymore for mundane purposes. So what does that mean, practically speaking? That a person, once he used that but that only applies when it applies when you already lit the candle. Once you lit it, it's considered to be already like sanctity. But before you lit it, let's say you haven't lit it yet, it's still in the bottle, or it's still just in the candle, but you didn't light it. That's not sanctity. You can still use it, and put something else over there if you want to put. You know what I mean? But once it's lit, it already attains sanctity. So then you're allowed to use for mundane purposes. So what does a person have to do if he has some left over like that? He has to burn that oil. He can't just use it for something for cooking, as we said. But there are two exceptions, right? Which a person can get away with this, by the way. Which is, as we said, number one, if he didn't light it yet, as we said, he didn't use it yet. If it's in the bottle or it's still in the candle, he didn't light, he's allowed to use that for anything he wants. Because until he lights it, there's no sanctity, as we mentioned. Number two, also, there's another thing. As we just mentioned, right, that the mitzvah of Chanukah candles is only for a half hour. After that, the mitzvah is over. So what does that mean? If you took, let's say, some oil and put it into the candle, and you had a lot, right? Let's say you had a big. So what happened was you burned for a half hour, and then you put it out. So the question is, what about the remainder over there? The remainder is allowed to use. What's the reason why? Because the half hour is already over. The mitzvah is already over. That oil now, which is in there, is not mitzvah oil anymore. That's already called mundane. It's chol. Why is that? Because the mitzvah is already over. So therefore, once you light it for a half hour and lit already, whatever is left over there, you can put it back into the bottle to use it for cooking, for making a salad, whatever you want to use it for, right? Whatever it is that you want to do with that. That's the idea. Or to use it for Shabbos candles as well. Whatever you want to do with it, no problem with that. Okay, thanks for coming. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen, amen. Have a great holiday. Lots of blessings.
Let me warm up the car.
I'll see you. I'll be out there.